Story number 1. The Footsteps Above. I never believed in the paranormal. Not until I moved into that old Victorian on Maple Street. It was a steel, 3 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, crown molding throughout. The realtor mentioned it had been on the market for 8 months, but I figured that was just the economy. I should have asked more questions. The first night was quiet, peaceful even. I fell asleep on an air mattress surrounded by boxes, dreaming of all the potential this place had. But the second night, that's when it started. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of footsteps. Not just any footsteps, slow, deliberate steps directly above my bedroom. Back and forth. Back and forth. The rhythm was methodical, almost hypnotic. I lay there in the darkness, my heart hammering against my ribs, telling myself it was just the house settling. Old houses make noise. Everyone knows that. But houses don't settle in footsteps. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. I crept upstairs, each step on the staircase announcing my presence with a groan. The second floor was freezing, at least 20 degrees colder than downstairs. My breath came out in visible puffs. The footsteps had stopped. I checked every room. Empty. All of them. I went back to bed, convinced I'd imagined it, that stress and exhaustion had played tricks on my mind. The next night, 3:17 a.m. again. The footsteps returned. Same pattern. Same pace. I tried to ignore them, pulled the pillow over my head, but I could still hear them. Feel them, even the slight vibration in the ceiling above me. This time, I didn't investigate. I just lay there frozen, waiting for them to stop. This continued for a week. Every single night at 3:17 a.m. I started researching the house's history during the day, my eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. That's when I found the newspaper article from 1952. A woman named Eleanor Marsh had lived in my house. She'd lost her husband in the war and fell into a deep depression. Her neighbors reported hearing her pacing the upstairs bedroom every night, unable to sleep, driven mad by grief. One morning, they found her hanging from the rafters in that very room, the room directly above my bedroom. I told myself it was just a coincidence. Tragic, yes, but it didn't mean anything. Except the footsteps continued. And they started getting closer. On the 10th night, I woke up not to footsteps above me, but footsteps in the hallway outside my bedroom door. The same slow, measured pace. Back and forth. Back and forth. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The doorknob began to turn so slowly, the brass catching the moonlight filtering through my window. The door opened. Nothing was there. Just the dark hallway and that impossible cold. But the footsteps continued, entering my room. I could hear them on the hardwood floor, moving closer to my bed. The floorboards creaked under invisible weight. Closer. Closer. I squeezed my eyes shut like a child, as if not seeing would protect me. The footsteps stopped right beside my bed. I could feel a presence standing over me, could feel breath, cold and stale, on my face. Then a whisper. Barely audible. A woman's voice, cracked and desperate. Help me sleep. Please. Help me sleep. I opened my eyes. In the darkness, I could make out a shape. A silhouette of a woman, her head tilted at an unnatural angle, as if her neck was broken. Or as if she was still hanging from that rope. I moved out the next morning. Didn't even pack. Just left everything and ran. The house is still on the market. They've lowered the price 3 times. Sometimes, late at night, I still wake up at 3:17 a.m., my heart racing, listening for footsteps that I pray I'll never hear again. But last week, I heard something that made my blood run cold. I was talking to my new neighbor, mentioning I'd just moved in. She smiled and said, "Oh, from where?" When I told her the address, her smile faded. "That old Victorian?" My sister looked at that place. She said during the viewing, she could have sworn she heard footsteps upstairs. But when the realtor checked, no one was there. I didn't tell her that the footsteps don't stay upstairs. That they learn. That they follow. Because now, in my new apartment, sometimes, just sometimes, I hear them again. Faint. Distant. But getting closer every night. And it's always at 3:17 a.m. Story number 2. The scratching in the walls. My daughter Emma was 6 years old when we moved into the farmhouse. It was my childhood home, left to me after my father passed away. I had mixed feelings about returning, but the inheritance tax wouldn't pay itself, and Emma needed stability after the divorce. The first few weeks were an adjustment. The house was exactly as I remembered, old, drafty, surrounded by cornfields that seemed to whisper at night. Emma loved it, though. She'd run through the rooms, her laughter echoing off the walls, bringing life to a place that had felt dead for so long. Then she started talking about the sounds. "Mommy, what's in the walls?" she asked me one morning over breakfast. I looked up from my coffee. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "The scratching. In the walls. At night." Her big brown eyes stared at me with innocent curiosity, not fear. "Not yet." I told her it was probably mice or squirrels. Old houses in the country always have critters. I'd call an exterminator. But that night I heard it too. Scratch. 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 It came from inside Emma's bedroom wall. Not the frantic scurrying of rodents, but something slower. Deliberate. Like fingernails dragging down the inside of the drywall. The sound made my skin crawl, made something primal in my brain scream danger. I knocked on the wall. The scratching stopped immediately. Silence. Then 3 knocks came back. From inside the wall. I stepped backward, nearly tripping over Emma's toys. That wasn't a mouse. I grabbed Emma and we slept in my room that night, pushing my dresser against the door. She thought it was an adventure. I barely slept. The next morning, I called an exterminator. He came out that afternoon, a weathered man named Dale who'd been in the business for 30 years. He checked the walls, the attic, the crawl space. Nothing. No droppings, no nests, no entry points. "Whatever you're hearing, ma'am, it ain't animals," he said, packing up his equipment. "These walls are clean." But the scratching continued. Every night. And it was moving. It started in Emma's room, then spread to the hallway. Then the living room. Then my bedroom. Always the same pattern, slow, methodical scratching, followed by those 3 knocks whenever I tried to make it stop. Emma started having nightmares. She'd wake up crying, saying the person in the walls was calling her name. I told her it was just dreams, but I'd started hearing it too. Between the scratching sounds, there was something else. A voice. Muffled. Distant. But definitely human. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was desperate. Pleading. I finally called my Uncle Robert, my father's brother. If anyone knew the history of this house, it was him. When I described the sounds, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "You need to leave that house," he said finally. "Tonight." "What?" "Uncle Robert, what's going on?" Another pause. "Did your father ever tell you about your Aunt Sarah?" I searched my memory. "I didn't know I had an Aunt Sarah." "You didn't. She died long before you were born. She was your father's younger sister. She was troubled. Mental illness ran in the family, though nobody talked about it back then. When she was 16, she became convinced that something evil was trying to get into the house. She said she could hear it at night, trying to break through the walls. My hands were shaking. What happened to her? She disappeared one night. Just vanished. Your grandparents searched everywhere. The police dragged the pond, searched the fields. They never found a body. Your father blamed himself. He was supposed to be watching her that night. But what does this have to do with? 2 weeks after she disappeared, your grandmother started hearing scratching in the walls. And a voice. Sarah's voice. She became obsessed with it, started tearing apart the walls, convinced Sarah was trapped somehow. Your grandfather had her committed. She died in that institution, still claiming Sarah was in the walls, still alive, trying to get out. I felt sick. That's just a story. A tragedy, but I helped your father renovate that house in 1985, Uncle Robert interrupted. We tore out all the old walls, rebuilt from the studs up. In the wall of what used to be Sarah's bedroom, we found scratches. Deep gouges in the wood from the inside. And words carved into the beam. "Let me out. Please. I'm still here." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. "That's impossible. We burned those walls. Every piece. Your father made me swear never to tell you. He thought if you didn't know, you'd be safe. But the scratching, it came back. Every night. Then it was never in the walls," he said, his voice hollow. "It was the house itself. It's hungry. And it's been waiting." That night, I packed our bags. We'd leave in the morning, stay in a hotel until I could sell the place. Emma was already asleep, so I carried her to my room, locked the door, and tried to rest. I woke up at 3 a.m. to silence. Complete, absolute silence. No creaking house. No wind. Nothing. And then I realized Emma wasn't in bed next to me. I ran to her room. The door was open. She was standing in front of the wall, her small hand pressed against it. She was crying. "Emma, get away from there." She turned to look at me, tears streaming down her face. "Mommy, she's so scared." She's been trapped for so long. She just wants to come out. Who, baby? Who's trapped? Sarah, Emma whispered. She says she's been waiting for someone who would listen. She says it hurts. She says it's so dark in there. The wall behind Emma began to bulge. The paint cracked. Something was pushing from the inside. I grabbed Emma and ran. We made it to the car in our pajamas, and I drove. Didn't stop until we reached my uncle's house 2 hours away. We never went back. I sold the house to a demolition company for pennies on the dollar. They tore it down last month. The foreman called me, said he wanted me to know they'd found something strange. In the foundation, sealed in the concrete, they found bones. Small bones. And a bracelet engraved with the name Sarah. The coroner estimated the bones had been there since the 1950s. Impossible, according to the building records. The foundation was poured in 1920. But there they were. Emma doesn't talk about that night anymore. But sometimes, I catch her staring at walls. Just staring. And once, I asked her what she was looking for. She said, "I'm listening, Mommy. Just listening. Because Sarah told me she wasn't alone in there. She said there were others. So many others. And they're still scratching." We moved to a brand new apartment building last month. Concrete and steel. No walls with history. No secrets. But last night, Emma came to me crying. "Mommy," she said, "I can hear it again. The scratching. It's not in the walls this time." "Where is it, baby?" She pointed down. "Under the floor." Story number 3. The voice on the baby monitor. Marcus and I were first-time parents. Our son, Dylan, was 3 months old, and we were running on caffeine and anxiety, convinced every little sound meant something was wrong. That's why we bought the expensive baby monitor. The one with video, night vision, temperature sensors, the works. We wanted to keep our baby safe. We had no idea we were inviting something else to watch him too. The first time we heard the voice, we thought it was interference. We just put Dylan down for the night when the monitor crackled to life. Through the speaker, we heard humming. Soft. Gentle. A lullaby. Marcus and I looked at each other. "Is that coming from outside?" I asked. He shook his head, turning up the volume. The humming was definitely coming from Dylan's room. We rushed upstairs. Dylan was asleep in his crib, peaceful. The room was empty. I checked the window, locked. The closet, empty. Nothing. "Maybe it's picking up a signal from a neighbor's monitor," Marcus suggested, but we both knew that didn't make sense. We lived on 5 acres. Our nearest neighbor was half a mile away. We convinced ourselves it was nothing and went back downstairs. But it happened again the next night. And the night after that. Always the same lullaby. Always in a woman's voice, soft and soothing. And Dylan seemed to like it. He'd settle down when it played, his fussy crying quieting to peaceful sleep. After a week, we'd almost gotten used to it. It was strange, yes, but Dylan was sleeping better than ever. We joked that we had a ghost nanny. We even started to find it comforting. Then the voice started talking. "Such a beautiful baby," it whispered one night through the monitor. "So perfect. So precious." I was downstairs folding laundry. I dropped the clothes and ran upstairs. Again, the room was empty. Dylan was fast asleep. But when I looked at the video monitor, I froze. In the corner of the screen, barely visible in the night vision's green glow, was a shadow. A dark shape that hadn't been there before. It was human-shaped, and it was standing over Dylan's crib. I screamed. The shadow vanished. Dylan woke up crying. Marcus came running, and I tried to explain what I'd seen, but when we reviewed the footage, there was nothing there. Just Dylan, alone in his crib. "You're exhausted," Marcus said gently. "We both are. You're seeing things." Maybe he was right. Sleep deprivation can do strange things to your mind. I wanted to believe that, but deep down I knew what I'd seen. The voice became more frequent. It would talk to Dylan during naps, during the night, sometimes even when we were in the room with him. We could hear it through the monitor, a constant whisper that the audio could pick up but our ears couldn't hear directly. "Mommy and Daddy don't understand," it would say. "But I do. I'll take care of you. I'll keep you safe. You're mine now. Mine." That word made my blood run cold. I started researching the house's history, desperate for answers. That's when I found out about Rebecca Cairns. She'd lived in our house in 1987. She'd been pregnant, 9 months along, excited to meet her baby girl. But there were complications during delivery. The baby was stillborn. Rebecca hemorrhaged. They both died in the ambulance before reaching the hospital. Rebecca's husband, destroyed by grief, sold the house and moved away. The house had been through 3 owners since then. According to local records, 2 of those families had young children. Both families moved out within a year. No explanation given. I showed the information to Marcus. "We need to leave," I told him. "Because of some sad story from 30 years ago?" "Honey, you're being paranoid." "Then explain the voice. Explain what I saw." "There's no such thing as ghosts," he said firmly. But I could see the doubt in his eyes. He'd heard the voice too. He just didn't want to admit what it might mean. That night, I pretended to go to bed but stayed awake, watching the monitor. At 2:47 a.m., the voice returned. But this time, it wasn't gentle. "He's mine," it hissed. "I waited so long. Lost so much. This baby is mine. You can't have him." On the video feed, that shadow appeared again. Clearer this time. It was the figure of a woman, translucent but visible, leaning over Dylan's crib. Her hands, if you could call them hands, reached toward my baby. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life. I burst into Dylan's room and grabbed him from the crib. He was ice cold, his lips tinged blue. He wasn't breathing. I screamed for Marcus while starting CPR. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Again. Again. Dylan gasped and started crying. The most beautiful sound I've ever heard. His color returned. He was okay. He was alive. But the temperature in the room had dropped so dramatically that I could see my breath. And in the mirror above the dresser, I saw her. Rebecca. She stood in the corner, her face twisted with rage and longing. "Give him back," she said, and this time I heard it with my own ears, not through a monitor. "He's supposed to be mine. I was supposed to have a baby. It's not fair. Give him back." "No," I said, holding Dylan tight against my chest. "He's not yours. He's mine." She screamed, a sound so full of anguish and fury that the windows rattled. The crib flew across the room and shattered against the wall. Drawers pulled open and clothes flew everywhere. The light bulb exploded, plunging us into darkness. Then Marcus was there with a flashlight, and the room went still. Rebecca was gone, but I could hear her voice fading, echoing. "I'll be waiting. I'll always be waiting." We left that night. Didn't pack. Didn't plan. Just drove to Marcus's parents' house and told them everything. They thought we'd lost our minds, but they let us stay. We put the house on the market the next day, sold it at a loss within a week. I didn't care. No price was too low to escape that place. The new owners were a young couple, expecting their first child. I almost warned them. Almost told them everything. But what could I say? That a ghost wanted to steal their baby? They'd think I was insane. So I stayed silent, and I've hated myself for it every day since. That was 2 years ago. Dylan is happy and healthy now, a rambunctious toddler with no memory of those terrible months. We live in a new house in a new town, and we've never used a baby monitor again. But sometimes late at night, I still hear it. Faint, like it's coming from far away. The humming. That same lullaby. I'll check on Dylan, and he's always safe, always sleeping peacefully. But I know what I hear, and I know what it means. Rebecca is still out there. Still looking. Still waiting for a baby to call her own. And she knows where we are. Last week, we found out I'm pregnant again. A girl this time. Marcus is excited. Overjoyed. But I'm terrified. Because last night, I heard the humming again. And this time I heard words. "It's okay," the voice whispered. "You took my son, but I forgive you. Because you're going to give me a daughter. The daughter I was supposed to have. And this time, I won't let you take her from me. We're moving again. We have to. But deep down, I know it won't matter. You can't run from something that isn't bound by walls or distance. You can't escape something that exists in the space between life and death. I'm writing this down because someone needs to know. Someone needs to understand. If you live in a house with history, if you have children, if you use a baby monitor, please listen carefully to what you hear. Because not all voices are from this world. And not all of them have your child's best interests at heart. Some of them are just waiting, watching, ready to take what they believe is rightfully theirs. And they have all the time in the world.